Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Leads Biotech, the podcast where we celebrate the achievements of women in the life sciences. My guest today has built a remarkable career across CROs, sponsors, startups, and large pharmaceutical companies, giving her a front row seat to the realities of how clinical trials actually function behind the scenes. But what stood out to me most in this conversation wasn't just her expertise in clinical operations. It was her honesty about burnout, leadership, identity, and what happens when high achievers tie too much of themselves to the work they do. We talk about the pressure so many clinical operations professionals quietly carry. Why empathy in leadership isn't a nice to have, but a business necessity, and how the industry itself is changing in ways many people still aren't prepared for. She also shares her own personal wake-up call, how she completely redefined success after years of running at full speed, and why she now helps others untangle chaos, rethink career stability, and build lives that work, both on paper and in reality. A thoughtful, honest, and timely conversation. So please welcome the CEO of the Research Associate Group, Melody Keel. Melody, hello.
Hello, Sharon.
How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Fellow podcast host, it's always nice to have a
I
chat with.
know to be on the other side of the camera, right?
I know, right? So enjoy your moment there
I
as
am. I'm gonna enjoy it.
not having to worry about asking the questions. And where are you based? Where am I actually speaking to you from?
So today I'm in Raleigh. For those who know me well, they know I split my time between Raleigh and Jamaica and
Okay.
Atlanta. So I kind of am a triangle of places. But today I'm in North Carolina,
Okay. I'm assuming you mean Jamaica, the country, not Jamaica, Queens,
Jamaica, the island.
the island. Jamaica, the island, not Jamaica, Queens, where
Correct.
the train station is and the airport. So good. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Gosh, I wish I could split my time. That must be heaven.
Yeah, it is actually. We just made the conscious decision that life is too short, and if you want to do something, figure out how to make it happen, and we have. So,
Fantastic.
Jamaica is part of it, but we love the Caribbean, so who knows? Next year I might be telling you I'm somewhere else too.
Well, next year I might be telling you I'm somewhere else
I
too.
know, or you just come on down with me.
Yeah, I'll come move in with you. Well, listen, part of the conversation I want to have to is I really want to focus on your experience within clinical operations.
Mm.
I speak to so many people, like clients and candidates, friends who are within ClinOps, a lot of asking, what? So this is a great opportunity for me to be schooled by somebody who's spent a lot of time in the space, who's seen it from all sorts of different angles, and really to get your take on it. So tell me how it all started for you in ClinOps, because it's like 20 years plus, right, that you've been doing
It
this.
is. This year is 22 years in the industry. All of it's
Okay.
been under clinical operations. And I'm like most people, I just fell into it. I came out of grad school, moved to Raleigh, North Carolina to teach science, and the funding fell through as soon as I signed on the dotted line for my nice little new apartment.
Lovely, lovely.
My grad teacher or professor said, you know what? You're in the hub of research. Go find a position with a pharma company or a company that supports research. And that's what I did. I sent my resume to INC Research for every day for like 37 days or something like that, faxed it in. So that tells you dinosaur days.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and
The
they
day of the
called and said,
facts.
please come in and interview for this clinical trial assistant position because we are really tired of getting your resume on our fax.
That's the way to do it.
And that's how I got in. And I just decided that it was really the best of both worlds for me. I plan to go to college and go to med school. And for reasons I won't share here, I did not go that route. And so this was a way for me to like really still have an impact from a medical perspective, impact patients positively, use my science background in some capacity, even though I feel like a lot of days I don't, and be the organizational boss. I love to boss people around. My family will tell you I am definitely the oldest and I live that hat truly. And it just fit for me and I stayed. And so CTA, moved into CRA role, went into project management, spent many years there, and then kind of went up the chain into being a director. And now I do fractional vice president of ClinOps roles, and I really enjoy that. So I've had the opportunity as a consultant. Most of my career has been as a consultant, not an employee. I've been able to see startups all the way to big pharma and everything in between. So it's really given me a lens into how different companies run operations, what works, what doesn't work. And the reoccurring theme throughout my 22 years is how have the people been treated? If the management understands the principle of taking care of your people and the work will get done, every time it's tested, I can see it win or fail. And so that's kind of where I've navigated myself over into clinical operations, but really being the advocate for the teams and the people that are doing the day-to-day of operations and being that middle person between leadership who may not understand the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day and how hard this really is, and then coming back down to the teams and being able to be the mediator and the advocate in between the two.
Yeah, I know you've been very vocal on, I think I've seen a post or two of yours, of middle managers being the backbone of ClinOps,
Yeah,
right?
they are. They are.
I mean, obviously you know all of this now with the with pleasure of hindsight. What did you learn along the way? And what were those steps along the way that you thought, whoa, this isn't working? This needs a, how did you get that kind of broken down to get to where you are now, to be able to say, okay, yeah, I know how to fix that for you and what's happening there?
Well, I think because ClinOps and clinical trials in general we're very compliant, we're regulated. So there's not too many deviations we can make on how we run clinical trials. We're getting to the place where some companies are becoming more efficient and learning how to use AI. I say that very loosely, and getting a better handle on not needing 50 million different processes to get to the end zone. But there's other companies that are still using many processes and many different people and very siloed. And so how do you make all of that work together? How do you bring that together to keep the train on track? And it's the people. And so when you know who the people are and the people feel like you actually care about them, and it's not just how much productivity I can get out of them, how can they keep the milestones and the goals and the timelines on track without me knowing that they have a family and that they have children and that they are cancer survivors, or they really are passionate about this and they do this when they're not at work. When you don't know those types of things about the people you work with, especially the people you lead, it makes a significant difference in the output of the work. And so for leaders that have been leading for a long time and even new leaders, I think the key to unlock everything is just empathy and humanity. Like, understand that you work with people who have other things going on than just the work at hand, right? And
Yeah.
so we see it over and over and over again. The people that are able to connect with their teams and advocate for them and care about them at a level that's bigger than just the work. Those teams are successful. They get things done. They meet deliverables, and others are looking, trying to figure out what's the difference. Why do their folks work for them better than my team does? And
Yeah.
it's not that difficult. It really is just understanding how to connect with your people and your teams.
The thing is, though, when you're battling that, I mean, you know, we all in an ideal world want to be there for our teams and there for our
Mhm.
people. And then the pressure comes in from left field, and, you know, there's money involved and
Yes.
budgets involved. And how do you advise those leaders to pause and be aware of that, but not lose sight of the people?
Right, right. It's a small investment. I remember working for a company and the commercial side of the business. Oh my goodness. They took their folks to baseball games. They were out, they had happy hour on Fridays and people were like ready. They were looking to go. They brought their spouses with them. Like, they just built this culture of connectivity and community, right? And that fueled the fire for the work getting done. I mean, they were knocking their deliverables and goals from a sales perspective out of the park. And all the functions and team members that supported that, they were all a unit and they worked together. And then when you compare that and you come over to ClinOps, and I asked the leadership, I said, man, I think we all want to work for commercial now. Why don't we do those types of things over here? And the leadership team told me, they were like, "Oh, that's not important for us. We don't sell. We don't need to have that type of environment." And I was like, "No, we're missing a really great opportunity here." And so they let me have a little bit of the ClinOps budget, right? And we just had some lunch and learns, and we implemented some just very small things, nothing in comparison to what the other team got to do. But the morale that it began to build, having conversations outside of the office, and just seeing that the leadership came to these, they actually didn't mind being part of the team, right? And having spending time outside of work. It started to make a difference. And you know what else we started to do? One-on-ones. No one met with their teams to have one-on-ones that didn't have anything to necessarily do with an urgent matter or
Right.
something's wrong or we need to put a fire out, but just scheduled one-on-ones. We started them once a quarter, and then the teams were asking for more frequent one-on-ones because that's where you got to talk about development, goals. I'm working every day. I'm working really hard. No one's acknowledging it. What's next for me? What are my opportunities on the team? And so when those things got to be discussed, then the other work started to look better,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, it's just not that hard. But
Doesn't take much, does it really?
I think what I say to leaders is if this isn't your thing, which it may not be, get someone in who it is their thing.
Yeah.
Just get an advocate in the team to be that person if it's not your thing. It makes a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that you do seen a lot in your messaging of you talk about untangling chaos and
Mm.
translating complexity into calm. And I know that people outside ClinOps often don't really understand the pressure that's sitting behind the scenes, right? Well, you go in and you get a few people and then you measure what's happening. I mean, they don't but what does the reality
Yeah. The
actually look
reality
like?
for ClinOps is there's a lot of moving parts. And so when you're in ClinOps, you get to be the kind of the spoke to the wheel, and you
Yep.
have all the functions that come out. So you have internal customers, regulatory, safety, data management, all the folks that you work with internally, whether you're a CRO or you're a sponsor. And then you have your external customers who are just as important, your sites, your vendors. There are a lot of moving parts to operations. And at the end of the day, you have to remember the folks at the end of this tunnel are actually humans taking drugs that we're learning about. What do they
Yep.
do to you? How do they impact you? This is not a drug that's on the market yet. And
Yep.
so, keeping all that in mind, it is overwhelming. And unless you've done it, unless you've lived in the world of clinical operations, you probably just don't understand. And one of the things that I hear most is burnout,
Mm,
depression, sadness, dread of going to work. Like this is not it's a heavy role. And many of us that are in it are type A personalities. We like to have things done and do them right. And the list never ends. So we're a type that we like to have our list checked off, but the list can never be
it's just
checked
keep
off.
adding things to the
Keeps
bottom of.
every
Yeah.
day it keeps growing.
Yeah.
And so that's the culture of ClinOps or the task at hand for day to day for us. You come into work in the morning and you think I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And by mid morning, that's completely blown up. You've got 500 fires, 15 different people saying they need you for something that has to do with something you discussed and agreed upon in terms of a process or a decision 3 days ago. And now it's all changed and we're starting again. You have vendors that have needs and wants, and you have to keep them on track and keep them on task. And so there's a lot of pull and tug with
Yep.
internal customers and external customers. And a lot of times now, especially, you have a lot of people that are junior. They're newer to the industry and they're great as individual contributors, and then they get more responsibility, they get new roles, but they don't get the support in terms of development and mentorship and coaching. They just get thrown in. And so when you add that, we're mixing up a bit of a cocktail that could be disastrous, I think, in our industry.
Yeah, it's you're right. It is normalized. And would you say it's fair that women quietly normalize it more than men? Why would you think that?
I think that's just our nature, though. Work or not, we do that. So we bring that to work on top
Mm,
of personal lives. We just quietly bring in and manage the stress and the things that get dumped on us or we get blamed for. And a lot of times in our personal lives, we don't know how to navigate that so well. So it doesn't just automatically appear at work either. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times I feel like we get overloaded. We're afraid to say no because we don't want to appear that we're not good teammates or team colleagues.
Yeah.
We definitely don't push back on leadership. If they say there's something that needs to be done, even if it's not doable or it's not feasible or you don't have room on your plate to do it, what do? Okay, let me work on that. Let me get back to you on that. And I think that's a lot of the places where in ClinOps, and I bet people are listening and they're not in ClinOps and they're like, you don't have to be in ClinOps to live.
Yeah, we'll cover another topic next week, but right now it's ClinOps.
Yeah. Those are important things that you have to be
Yeah.
comfortable with and be okay and secure knowing that I'm really good at what I do. I know what I'm doing. I can stand up and say this isn't reasonable because of this, and I propose this instead, and be comfortable in saying, well, I understand you're going to go another route, but I don't have the capacity to do that. I can contribute in this way. And so when I mentor and I have teams that I help, and young ladies and even ladies that may not, that are a little bit more senior than me, but they see that I've figured out how to do this, I'm always happy to say, this is how I've done it. And I think you could try it this way as well.
All right. And do you see that it's higher within CROs than sponsor companies, or is it the same challenge?
Today's episode is brought to you by CNA USA Executive Search. We support life sciences, biotech, medtech, and advanced therapies companies with search solutions built on credibility, deep networks, and an authentic approach to partnership. If you're hiring, planning ahead, or simply want to learn more about what we do, visit cnasearchusa.com. Now, on to today's conversation.
I've been on both sides of the line and I have been very vocal. I say this all the time. I love my sponsor life. I am not built for CRO world. I have
Right.
lived it and I work with amazing CROs. I like blurred lines. I don't want folks to be able to know who's the CRO team, who's the sponsor team. We all
Yep.
work together.
Yep.
But CRO life gives you double responsibility, double oversight, double management looking over your work because you have your
Yep.
CRO management, but you also have to make sure the sponsor's happy. And I
Yep.
was like, wait a minute, I'm getting one check, but I'm kind of doing two jobs here.
Yeah. And they could be two different jobs because people are talking
Yeah.
different things, right?
In CRO world, you could be assigned to two different sponsors or multiple sponsors. I know CRAs that have, five different protocols, three
Yeah.
different sponsors, a million different sites, and one paycheck.
Yeah.
So I just made the decision early on. I like to look at things for what they are, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to stick to my sponsor life.
You've spoken very openly about reaching a point where, and I loved this phrase, where you were successful on paper, exhausted in reality.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What did that period look like?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I have very rarely been an employee. So, I'm a consultant. I'm very good at multitasking and I'm very good at kind of juggling. So, I've never had to go out and get a contract as a consultant. And for my 1099ers, you know what I mean. And so, work has always come to me. And that's been a result of doing the work that I do very well. And so when someone leaves a company, they call and they say, we need a PM or we need a director. Can you come over? And I say, okay. But then you realize you said yes too many times. And I was just burned out. I had too many clients. Even if I'm, 20% over here helping you just do this small little thing, but you stack and you realize I've overstacked myself.
Yep.
And that's where I found myself in 2020. We had the pandemic. We were all at home. The work was even more so chaotic than trying to.
'Cause you're trying to deal with remote monitoring, right? As
figure
well
out
as
how
the
to run
on-site.
these trials
Yep.
from home. Everybody's.
Yep.
And so I had a stroke. I had a mild stroke at 40,
Oh, wow.
and it was the biggest wake up call of my life because I had kids at home, husband, mom. It was very difficult to sit in the hospital and think what would be if I wasn't here anymore. If this had a different outcome. What would that look like for the people I love the most? And that was the wake up call for me to say, okay, I have to do this differently. I love what I do, but I can't do it this way anymore. And being exhausted and burned out and not being able to remember your kid's birthday party last year, like it's just like a complete blur. And you were like, what did we do? Who was there? I just don't
Was
know.
I there?
Was I there? I had to change that. And so that's where the last 6 years I've really adjusted how I work. And that is part of my Jamaica story. And feeling like this is something we want to do. We're not going to wait until retirement age. We're going to figure out how to do this now.
Yeah, because retirement age just keeps getting moved further and further down the road, doesn't it?
It
So
does.
who's ever going to retire if you
I
don't
know.
make that
I want to
stand?
enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. And I want to enjoy it with my family. And so that's the adjustment I've made. And so now I try to make things work for me on paper and in reality.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. And so how hard, I mean, I know you work with a lot of high achieving women as
Mhm.
well as part of the work that you do. How hard is it for high achieving women to walk away from, I mean, it's their identity, right? You
Yes.
know, you're defined by, so many high achieving women are defined by the work that they do and are almost lost without it. How do they recalibrate from that and get that sense of balance?
Yeah. I think the question that I always ask, and I've asked myself this question 5 years ago, and now I ask it to my friends and the women that I meet that are just drowning and pretty miserable with just get up, take care of my family, go work this job that sucks all the life out of me, and then come home, figure out how to still be present for that family, and then
Mm,
do it again tomorrow.
mm.
And the question I ask them is if you did not have to work, because let's just be honest, most of us are working because we want the paycheck. We're not working
Yep.
because we just love
We
it
love
that
it.
week. Right. So if you didn't have to worry about a paycheck, what would you do for free? And what's astonishing to me is many women don't know the answer to that. And you should. You should, because we should be working towards getting to that, being able to step away from the day to day grind that we created and made our identity. That's not who we are. But
Mm,
because we've given it so much time and that's what our focus is, it's who we become.
yep.
So, how can we back ourselves out of that and begin to look towards what would really bring us joy? What do we really want to do every day? And I think that that's where you start as a high achieving person or woman that has become this identity of the corporate goal that you set, because it was
Yep.
really just to achieve things, not to become that, right? But
Yep.
somewhere down the line, we become that. I became the clinical research consultant who worked for many different clients, made great money, but had no time for life. I didn't live, I just worked. And I had to back myself out of that identity. And now I feel like I'm um, an entrepreneur who's all about my family. I live and kind of go where the wind says I want to go. And for a while, I was a little guilty about that, but I'm not anymore. I kicked that. And I'm a ClinOps expert. If you got issues and challenges with ClinOps, you should give me a call and see if I'm available. I might not be, but if I am, I can come help you take care of the issues you have. That's the identity I'm forming for myself instead of it first being ClinOps consultant and everything else last.
And so what goes through your mind when somebody does reach out to you and says, you know, I've got such and such, and I could really call, you know, I could really do with your help with doing this. There's a part of you that thinks, "Oh, that would be quite fun to do. That's exciting." And then you think, oh, hang on a minute, what else has got going on? How do you stop yourself getting back to square one of, oh, hang on, suddenly my calendar's now full from now till
Yes,
Christmas
yes.
2028 or something? How do you deal with that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. I won't sit here and say, especially if it's a former colleague, which a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say no to people that you really built a relationship with and you want to see them succeed. And so what I've learned to do is I've actually put a system in place where I can meet with someone and I can evaluate your situation and give you a plan to implement without me. And I think that's the key for many high achievers. How do you continue to help people or companies, organizations be successful without you actually being present? There's a
Right.
way to do that. And
Okay.
so we all can win. I can help you get a plan in place and help you figure out how to implement that without me physically sitting in the seat. And in ClinOps, that's hard because as a consultant, I couldn't just say, okay, you hired me for 12 months. You need me to do XYZ. Great. I'm going to send in my team and they're going to do this for you. And they're like, no, 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 no. We hired you.
We want you.
We need to see your face on Zoom, not your team. And so that was a big challenge for me in the ClinOps world. But I think whatever world you live in, There's a way to package up your expertise, put it in a system, and offer that and the value and the transformation that comes from that instead of you being the transformation directly.
Right. And it looks like, and certainly there's been a big push on this that I've noticed over the last couple of years, that traditional idea of career stability that's changing, certainly for, no, not just women. I think people of a certain age need to look at what else is there other than this traditional, I've just been laid off at 55, and I've got at least another 10, maybe 15 years of working, and I've got to go through all this rubbish of trying to get a job at 55 and prove my worth.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
I mean, there is this shift, and I think there needs to be this shift in what does your career look like, maybe from this stage onwards. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think we're in a massive, people are sleeping at the wheel right now, and we're getting ready to have a colossal pileup. And for those that have been laid off for months and maybe even a year or more, they're starting to see what's happening. Our industry is cyclical, so we have these downturns and then it comes back, hiring comes back, and we do this. But this feels very different. Right now, where we are feels very different. And I don't think the jobs are going to come back in the same way. Whether it's AI, whether it's the direction our industry is going, whatever the reason, these jobs are not going to come back. And I think we all have to prepare ourselves to become mini ecosystems where the expertise that we have, we learn how to package it up and be prepared to offer it to multiple different clients and companies. The joy of being an employee with a K and a salary and all that, for many of us, that's not going to work anymore. We're going to have to figure out how to generate revenue based on the expertise that we've accumulated over the years. And so for someone like me that's done this all my career, it's not that scary. I know how to go out and sell myself in order to get a contract or to get a client. I built this without even knowing it, this Rolodex of potential clients based on knowing people. They lead, they go to another. But if that hasn't been what you had to do and you just were able to apply, interview, land a new position, you've got to start thinking about things differently and get connected to people and organizations that can help you make this transition and pivot. Because if you're still employed and you have a job, great. Keep it and start working on this. Start building your personal brand. Start learning how to go out and market yourself in a way that doesn't make you feel slimy because you're not a salesperson. Like understanding those skills, honing your AI. You're going to have to learn AI, whether you want to or not. You're going to have to. And so begin to do those things while you're working. And if you're laid off, then let's figure out a way for you to start generating income right now as a mini company. Not as an individual, but as a mini company, and building your ecosystem and what you're good at and what you can offer. I think that's the key right now. That's what we should be focusing in on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And certainly, what I'm seeing as a recruiter, and literally, I've been in this business over 40 years as a recruiter. And this current cycle, down spiral, whatever, it can't be explained. I've worked through 5 different downturns, and they've always seen a pattern, and you can always see when the outcome's going to be, and you can always see what's going to happen. This seems that there isn't a pattern. Something else happens tomorrow, and then what happens tomorrow has suddenly thrown it all out again. And the people really suffering in this area are those people who've never looked for a job. They've been headhunted their whole lives. They're suddenly finding themselves, put out to pasture, so to speak.
You're not ready to be.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Well, and in lots of cases, whether you are ready to be or not, you can't afford to be.
Exactly.
So, they've got to make it work. But then candidates of mine literally on the market for a year plus.
I know.
Brilliant people who 2 years ago I would have found them work in a heartbeat.
They would have had multiple offers to choose from.
And I have to say, one of the things that actually really upsets me, and this is a shout out to any of my fellow recruiters that might be listening to this, is this old idea of that the people that are right for the jobs aren't looking for jobs, they're in jobs. Yeah, that may well have been the case in 2011 through up until 2022, I think, because, jobs were plentiful. There were lots of things happening. And if you really wanted a job, there was no reason why you didn't have one. But this is very different. And these are really, really talented individuals who still have an awful lot to offer, and need to know where to go and what to do about that. Have you got that in your roller? Have you got that in your system that you're thinking about how you support those people?
I do. So I'm working on, and I am a strong believer in investing in yourself. I have joined masterminds. I have had amazing coaches, all of that, but they're very expensive. And so if you are laid off or unemployed, or you're afraid that you may become, you're not going to drop $50,000 on a mastermind or a program, or 25,000 here. It's expensive. That world is expensive. And so what do you do when you don't have that, but you still need the information? You still need access to experts and coaches that are willing to help. And so I think putting together a community where people can come and find a safe space, get in person, right? Because I'm real sick of virtual some days. I just want to have an afternoon and be in a room with women.
I know, right? I miss that too.
I want that. And so I am working to put together a community and launch in the next few weeks where, whether you're laid off or not, whether you've been in the industry for a long time or not, I think there are gaps, support that's missing across the board. And so I'm really excited about that. And I'm lining up some incredible people who have agreed to kind of be resident coaches and mentors and experts in this community. And I actually plan to circle around to you as well, because I just think you have the viewpoint of being a recruiter all these years and knowing how to market and what companies are looking for. Now we have to change from being an individual to being a business that is going to work for a business. And I just feel like you have so much insight and expertise and knowledge in helping people understand what that looks like.
Well, I'd be delighted, absolutely delighted to
I would love that.
Partner with you on that. And so, I look forward to the future of that. I'm very conscious of your time. So I just have one final question for you. What would you say to that person who's out there and their identity is still completely tied to their work?
I would say wake up, because the work isn't who you are. And tomorrow that work could be gone. And then what? We have a purpose and we have an identity that is so not part of what we do day to day for income. And so what I would say to that person is just figure out what it is you love to do. What are the things you love to do? What brings you joy? And it can't have anything to do with work. Nothing to do with work. Just start there. And it doesn't have to be some big monumental transformation. Small incremental steps towards really figuring out why you're here, who you are, and what you want to give to the world outside of being an excellent ClinOps professional or a wonderful executive that leads these organizations into, the golden years. You know what I mean?
Because they're not going to care at the end of the day, are they?
Care.
They are not going to care, no matter how lovely you think the company and your boss and...
If the money goes away or the board decides they want to go in another direction, your identity means nothing. Goodbye. On to the next. And so I think we have to untangle ourselves from that and really give ourselves permission to just know who we are and what we want and not be guilty about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said it was the last question, but I have got one more. You said a little earlier on in our conversation, think about what you would do for free.
Yes.
What would you do for free?
What would I do for free? I would be an interior designer. I would love all things interior design. And then I love to host people in the homes that I have done interior design on. So if you want to come hang out and be hosted and entertained and have a wonderful meal and have a good time, that's what I love to do. And I would do that for free every day.
That sounds like a plan. And I would sing and perform for people for free.
Oh,
so while you do you do the
You can be the
interior design.
entertainment.
I'll come be the entertainment.
See, I told you we're a
There we
dynamic
go.
duo.
There we
Already.
go. All right, it's happening. It's happening. Melody Keel, thank you so much for joining me today. I've had a fantastic conversation.
Me too.
And I can't wait to see what you implement. You're so passionate about particularly people's value at work and how to really maximize that so they can continue to be people and not just work cogs in a wheel. And I would be honored to be part of that with you. So don't hesitate to give me a call.
I will be calling. Thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely wonderful.
Pleasure. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of She Leads Biotech. If today's story inspired you, subscribe, follow, and comment. Because when one woman's voice is heard, many more find theirs. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading.